So how do I share?
Share as well. He's presenting.
Visible on net.
How should I this Amarendra? How do I share my presentation?
You share it.
But entire screen it is
Entire screen, yeah.
Is it now
Yeah,
visible?
make it full screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
This would be fine.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Good evening, all. Once again, all the distinguished scholars there, and I'm sorry. First of all, apologize for not being there my physical presence due to some other reason.
Sound.
So this presentation would be, the chapter that we contribute is on education-related aspects. The title of the chapter is "The Preparing Odisha for a Knowledge Economy." And myself and Dr. Bibunandini Das, we are both contributing authors. Yeah, going in. So this would be like the chapter outline here for presentation purposes, like just giving you the context and background of the state and current status and status of education development in Odisha, prospects, strategies, and then finally we will have concluding remarks. So just as a context, when we look into the situation of Odisha, the current performance of Odisha in education is a little remarkable compared to the past. When we compare the past situation before the last 40 years, 50 years, and during the last 2 decades, if you see, there is a remarkable performance of Odisha in terms of education, school attendance rates as well as the college attendance rates. Over a period, actually, literacy rate of the state was it was less than national average, but 2011 census figures proves that the Odisha state literacy rate is almost matching with the national average. And so that is because of recent good performance of the state that made improving its literacy rate. And even the percentage of when we are looking into the school education, the attendance rate among the 6 to 14 years, it is a kind of constitutional mandate saying that all the children in the age group 6 to 14 years should be in schools without any being out of the schools. So that percentage of the 6 to 14 years age children attending school in the state is 97%. It is little closer to the universalization. It's not only Odisha, most of the states in India are doing better. Most of the states having percentage of the children among the 60 14 years age is 95%, higher than the 95% or higher. So most of the states are little closer to the constitutional mandate universalizing their attendance among the 6 to 14 years. National average is 96%. That means Odisha is doing better than its percentage is higher than national average. But the issue is the Odisha state is lagging behind in secondary and higher education. That is its attendance rates in the among the secondary school age children and then college age population. The attendance rates are little lower. Okay. That means it is indicating that the transition from all those who have attended primary and secondary schools and moving upwards towards the higher secondary and colleges, that transition there is a some problem. They are not able to move from elementary level to the secondary and higher secondary and then colleges. Along with that, the transition problem, there is equity and quality issues that needs to be addressed in the state context. Okay. The main objective of the chapter is status and bringing out status and prospects of educational development in the state of Odisha, suggestions regarding policy strategies, and then looking into the both demand and supply factors and input and outcome indicators, and then social policy, education policy, and all these things. And so the data sources that we have made use for the analysis in the chapter is DICE. Earlier we had DICE, now it is called UDICE. Again, now improved UDICE plus statistics and state budget document analysis of related to budget and NSSO employment and employment survey, social consumption on education related to NSSO and recent periodic labor force survey. All that we have tried to explore these survey data to made some analysis related to status of education development in Odisha. So when we look into take the long run view, the kind of foundation for modern education in Odisha, it started in 19th century under colonial regime with the missionaries initially started, and later the colonial state has taken that responsibility. In Odisha, particularly in the Odisha context, the more of such initiatives started in the, when Odisha was in the Bengal presidency. That 1920 it started, but major effort was made after that 1866 severe drought, and there were representations from the locals to improve the presence of educational institutions, and then literacy, literates, the importance of literates, and then so at the time of 1986, there were hardly 66 primary schools and very few of middle and high schools. So that has improved during the period, 1966 to the time of independence. The number of primary schools have improved to the 6,800, and then middle schools to the 286, and high schools to. But they were, still their number has increased, but they were not enough to bring more and more children to the school education. There was hardly only one university that it was there, and then very few colleges were there for higher education. So what we got is that the hardly 16% of primary school age children were enrolled in primary schools at the time of independence, and then the literacy rate in Odisha was very less than 10%, at just 8.5% in 1931. But it has improved. The next 2 decades, it has improved to the 15.8% by 1951. But it was at the time also it was less than the national average. So post-independence there was when compared with the pre-independence period, the progress in education was remarkable, and the number of schools have improved, and colleges and the attendance rates have improved. All this, they were there. So but in the post-independence period, the situation before 90s and then situation after 90s was, again there is a difference. And then post 90s, again further progress has made in the state context as well as in the national context. All the states, a lot of progress made during the post-independence period is during the last 3 decades period. We can see that following that 1986 policy, and then program of action or plan of action of 1992, and then national level interventions like DPEP and SSC Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. Then now, RMSA Rashtriya Madhyamika Shiksha Abhiyan, and then now Samagra Shiksha. So with these interventions, there is improvement in the attendance rates, and so now almost 96, 97, 98% of the 6 to 14 years children in the state are attending. Of course, still there is a gap universalizing that school attendance. But at the college level, still, there was one university along with 12 degree colleges, but now the number of colleges have universities and the number of colleges have increased. And there is an increase in social demand for higher education that has expanded the institutional base since 1990s, both in public and private sector. It is all over India as well as in the state context. But what we see is that the post-independence period was actually limited by, because Odisha has a burden of history in terms of slow progress, pre-independence period, and then after. Relatively, the progress in terms of its own past, it is remarkable, but progress in terms of the progress, relative progress when we compare with the other states, it's a kind of little slower. Another disadvantage with the particularly with the Odisha is that the high percentage of its population belonging to the marginalized communities. More than 20% of the state population is SC or ST. It is highest, one of the highest among Indian states. Excluding the northeastern states, anyway, they are higher. So, and when we look into that state formation itself, initially the part that was considered a part of the Bengal presidency, and when state was formed, a lot of agency areas was merged, and the progress made in respect of education in these agencies were very poor. So these agencies were combined with the Odisha, and while the state formation, the agencies joined, merged with the Odisha, had a very poor educational progress, and then state has to slog on to bringing that regions as well to improve their conditions, educational conditions and development in those. So a lot of, the agrarian economy, because the socio-economic conditions, definitely demand factors as well as along with the supply, there is a demand factor as well as contributing to the education development, that is conditions of socio-economic conditions. There, most of the population households living in agrarian economy. So unless and until agrarian economy develops and improves, the demand for education also little slows down. So in Orissa, agrarian economy for a long time, it's in a primitive stage, not influenced by that green revolution technologies. Still it is, that kind of situation, still it is prevailing in Orissa state. Progress made during the post-independence period till the 21st century is remarkable when compared with the past, pre-independence, but it is far short of universalization. Of course, these things just I mentioned that the following the national education policy, and then there is a remarkable kind of progress we can see. So now we can see the current situation, the number of institutions. Earlier we used to have the shortage of institutions and all these things, but during the last 2 decades, the number of educational institutions available for the population, there is a tremendous improvement across the states as well as in Orissa. So now almost at the time of independence, we had less than 10,000, 6,800 schools, 7,800 total educational institutions. But now we have almost 62,000 schools itself. Again, in addition to that, we have 1,000 plus 1,100 colleges and 32 universities. So now the institutions, number of educational institutions is very high. The when we look into that standardized indicator, like the number of institutions available per lakh population, at the time of independence, it was like just 70. Now it is 150, something like that. It's almost doubled that time. The literacy and the kind of outcome when we look into the, first of all, the literacy rate. So first and foremost is literacy rate. So literacy rate also improved during the last 5-6 decades, and it was lower than, state performance was lower than the national average, but by 2011, it has matched with the national average in terms of. So you can see that the decadal change and the rank of Orissa. In terms of the decadal change, I think its performance is good, even though it's standing among the Indian states is one of the lowest, but its performance during the last 6 decades, it's doing good and improving the literacy rate. When we look into the completion rates by age cohorts, it's presenting the not only the current situation but also the situation in the past. So the completion rate of, for example, the older age cohort indicate the when they were in that school age. It reflects the attendance rates when they were in the school age. So we can see that the completion rates among the younger age cohorts is higher than the older age cohorts. But it is consistently in Odisha, it is lower than the national average. Although it is improving across age groups, especially among the younger age groups, but it is still lower than the national average. So, that literacy rate that so far we have seen is that the census 2011, when we look into the literacy rate for the, updated one based on the PLFS 4 2021, Odisha now literacy rate is 77.5% among the 7 years and above population, and adult literacy, that is 15 plus population, is 74%. Well, the national average is, of course, still that according to the latest estimate, the performance of the state is little lower than the national average. Well, the national average is 79% among the 7 plus years and 76% among the 15 plus years. So that means the almost 1/4 of the population in the state still remain as illiterate. That is the kind of situation. Of course, it is not the pool of illiterates. It is not only in Orissa, but many other states. Still, the Odisha state performance is better than Bihar, MP, Rajasthan, UP states, and also two Telugu states, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha, Telangana. So, Odisha is doing better than these states in India. And the completion rates, as I said, that it is below average, national average, but fast improving, owing to the remarkable performance in school education during the last 2 decades. So when we come to what is that, the current attendance rates gives, actual situation at present, right now. So we have made some estimates based on the PLFS 2 2018-19. Of course, right now we have PLFS 4 2021. We have used. We started working 1 year back on this chapter, and then we made some estimates, and then we are carrying. But we'll update that with the latest PLFS 4 estimates. So the attendance rates among the 3 to 5, that is pre-primary level. We are now talking about our national education policy is talking about pre-primary education and preparing the children for the formal schooling. But the attendance rates at the national level as well as in the state are very low, very low. At the national level itself, it is 22%. In the state, of Odisha, it is nearly 18%. It is far lower. And but among the school age, we can see that there is 97%, nearly 97% of the school age population attending schools in Orissa, and 96% at the national level. It is marginally, I mean, the state percentage is marginally higher than the national average. But when we move up among the secondary or higher secondary school age population, that is 15 to 17, that is very critical for the higher education. The attendance rates are lower. I mean, there is only 72% of the 15 to 17 are currently attending. In Odisha, it is 82% at the national level. So again, the upwards among the college age population, that is 18 to 23, it is 28% of the population they are attending educational institutions. So 28% is not the GER. Keep in mind that it is not the GER of higher education. It is 28% of the 18 to 23 are attending educational institutions. It can be higher education institutions. Still, this population is attending the school education as well. I mean, we don't know. I mean, some of the overage children being in the school education, we cannot deny that. I mean, a percentage of these can be still attending the schools. So it is almost that even if we take that percentage of the college age attending educational institutions, it is almost 10% lower than the national average. Okay, state standing. If we take, it is almost one of the, I mean, lowest. If you take all the states and UTs, Union Territories, its state standing is 30 and above. Among the major states, it's at least, I mean, except that 6 to 14, the other ones is 18 and above. Okay, state standing is very low among the Indian states. That's what we can observe. And on the equity aspects, we can see that completion rates, we can see that there is the differences by gender and social groups and religious groups. Among the religious groups, one of the, I mean, important observation that we made is that, of course, I mean, percentage of the Muslim population is very, very marginal in Orissa, but they are doing better than the Hindu population. Of course, Hindu consists of SC/ST as well. But still, even if you exclude, Muslim communities are not doing, I mean, they are not less disadvantaged. They are as much as good as that of Hindu, even if we exclude them. But SC/ST performance, by social groups, we can see that SC/ST performance is far lower than them. And the other observation one can make is that even across the social groups, the state performance is little, lower than the national average in terms of gender or in terms of social group or in terms of religious groups. And similar kind of situation prevails in terms of these current attendance rates among the 3 to 5, 6 to 14, 15 to 17, and 18 to 23. Across these groups, rural-urban differences, gender differences, and social group differences, and religious group differences. It is there. So again, the other dimension is that regional disparity. Regional disparity, we can see especially among the 6 to 14. We can see that in the 6 to 14, the differences across any population groups, I mean, population groups by any characteristics, rural, urban, or gender, or social group, there is less, where the differences are very less. That is, I mean. But in the 3 to 5 or 15 to 17 or 18 to 23, we can see the differences. Similarly, here also, regional differences in the 6 to 14 ages very less. But in other age groups, we can see there is a disparity, and especially we can see that the coastal region performing much better in terms of higher education. I mean, especially the college age population, attendance rates in college age population very high in coastal area, and then northern and southern area is very poor. Here in the 15 to 17 age group, coastal is far ahead, but the differences in other two regions is very less. So that is about the attendance rate, but attendance doesn't be sufficient for the, I mean, emerging knowledge-based economies. I mean, a lot of literature we can see that talking about Unshake and others, I mean, scholars talking about it is not the number of years of schooling, but it is the quality of education and the learning levels. I mean, World Bank has brought out a report a few years back about talking about learning crisis in India, I mean, especially education system. Now we have as many children as that of they are attending schools, but what they are learning, that is the matter of great concern now. So when we look into that aspect, NISER reports, if you see, the particular aspect that brought out is that the foundational literacy and numeracy on that, whether particular standard children are able to read a basic reading skills and basic arithmetic skills like. So we can see that acquiring these basic skills, literacy and numeracy skills, it is taking by eighth class, the 72% of the 73% of the children, when after reaching, I mean, eighth class, they are able to acquire those reading skills. Okay, they are supposed to acquire these skills at the second class itself. I mean, reading the standard 2 text, they are supposed to acquire that reading skill, literacy skill. They are supposed to acquire at the second class itself. But
can you quickly finish, because
yeah. Okay. So that is the kind of thing, and then the problem is that cumulative effect of deficit in foundational literacy and numeracy result in learning achievement far shorter than the expected learning outcomes at each subsequent levels of education, ultimately affecting the employability. Now we are talking about the employability of graduates. So these deficits will finally lead to that. So we can see that the result, annual series of the India Skilled Report indicate that Odisha is one among the states with lower employability skills. But still, I mean, the 2021 report is showing that state is one among the states with maximum supply of employability talent. I mean, still that has kind of thing. So one of the issues with the, I mean, quality of education is the human resource deficit. But when we look into this people-teacher ratio or faculty-student ratio at higher education, people-teacher ratio at school education, it is indicating, I mean, there is no such kind of deep deficit at the aggregate level. But at the school level, we have to see that the kind of deficit, and we can see that many schools multi-grade teaching happening, and so other infrastructure facilities also we can see certain kind of deficits, the number of schools which are not having basic facilities. And another important aspect is that about the investment, I mean, public investment in education, both of course private and public, but here we didn't bring private aspect here. When we look into the public investment in education, interestingly, now India is making it was a long cherished promise, I mean, since the Kothari Commission, to spend at least an amount equivalent to the 6% of GDP should be spent on education for the educational development of the country, but it is not fulfilled. But now at least India is able to spend 4% of GDP. Even interestingly, Orissa is spending 4%. I mean, an amount equivalent to the 4% of its GDP on education. That is one important. But the GDP itself, the GDP growth in Orissa itself is lower, but that may not be sufficient for the educational expenditure of the state. I mean, that is. So even though it is in terms of by indicator as a percentage of GDP or as a percentage of its total budget expenditure, it is spending, but its GDP itself is lower. That's why the amount per capita expenditure on education for the population or the per student, we can see it is lower than the national average. So now when we are looking into the given the kind of situation, so what are the prospects and what should be the strategies? One of the good thing, I mean, happening all over the country due to fertility transition and demographic transition is that the size of the school age population is actually declining. We can see that in Odisha it is happening. It is not specific to the Odisha, it is all across the country. So that means earlier, whenever we are trying to expand to expand the school education, as the population increases, we have burdened with increasing more number of schools. Now we don't have that problem. Population size is stabilized. Either, I mean, it is not increasing. If it is, if not so much of decline, but it is not increasing. That means that is stabilized. You don't have to worry about increasing more and more number of schools as the population size increases. So that is the advantage now. That is the advantage for every state government, especially to invest in education. Now more and more quality related aspects they can increase instead of increasing the number of institutions. Okay. So here, when we see that Orissa is closer to the universal attendance among the 6 to 14 years age children, about to it is about to fulfill that constitutional mandate of 100% attendance among this age group. So disparities in respect of attendance rate been reduced to across gender, but still it persists. There is a reduction, but still there is a certain kind of gaps are considerable gap in achieving the universal attendance rate among the 15 to 17 year age. Even though our constitutional mandate says 6 to 14, the universalization of the attendance rate among the 6 to 14, but the global norm is that all the children in 6 to 17 years age should be in school, and they should complete this higher secondary school by the time they attain 18 years of age. That means not only attendance, but also age appropriate class enrollment. That is an important aspect that is global norm is indicating. And again, the Odisha is halfway mark towards, NEP is talking about 50% of GER by 2035, but now Odisha is having only 25%. Its GER is less than 25%. So it has to slog on, it has to work. To emerge as knowledge-based economy, Odisha requires human resources with educational levels beyond school education. So it is not the now, Odisha doesn't have to much bother about the number of educational institutions available. It has to equip the existing educational institutions with human resources and infrastructure. That is Odisha, one of the important unique feature of Odisha is that still many other states have are relying on private institutions, but still in Odisha, almost 70%, 70 to 80% of its enrollment in school education as well as in the higher education is still enrolled in the government schools. So government institutions' presence is very high in Odisha. Odisha can continue with that, but the existing institutions have to be strengthened in terms of human resources and infrastructure. Okay, that is an. Of course, I mean, wherever selectively expanding the education institutions, I mean, is that wherever required. It's not that there should not be any new institutions have to establish, but selectively. But it doesn't need much of that. Otherwise, I mean, in a population increasing state, now that kind of situation is not needed. But the strengthening the existing institutions is foremost. To increase enrollment and quality, it necessitates, I mean, same point, I'm equipping the educational institutions with teaching resources, investing in physical infrastructure of education, key priority. Use of technologies, especially digitization technology, but that aided instruction, technology aided instruction is good, but it should not be, I mean, now a lot of literature and other studies talking about the digitization technology, but that should not displace the teachers or that should not be used as substitute for the teacher. It should supplement or complement the teacher. I mean, technology aided instruction is good, but that should not displace the teacher. And there is a thing. I mean, policy should keep an attention towards the curriculum development in school education as well as in the higher education, along with the assessment and evaluation systems have to be.
Yes, Venkat, please.
Yeah. Just 2 minutes. It is end of that. So the ensuring required human resources and the teachers is a key factor. Primary schools must have. One of the thing what we are missing is that at the aggregate level we see that we have this enrollment, we have this much of teachers, but actually at the ground level, every primary school must have 5 teachers to run 5 classes simultaneously. Class 1 to 5 has to be run simultaneously, means without multi-grade teaching, it needs 5 teachers. I mean, there should not be any compromise on that. Similarly, every second school must have subject teachers. I mean, each subject teacher, one subject teacher cannot teach other another. So otherwise, children are. So in this respect, the kind of mission is what we propose is that for enriching the competent human capital base for the knowledge economy in Odisha. So improving the current attendance rate among the higher secondary, that is, I mean, almost state has almost achieved the closer to the universalization among the 6 to 14. Now it has to concentrate on improving the attendance rates among the 15 to 17 years. And so it has to improve for the quality, respect, foundational literacy and numeracy, GER in higher education and quality education, learning achievements matching with the learning outcomes and developing the employability skills. And there again, we have curriculum along with assessment and tribal students and infrastructure. Thank you. That will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Venkat, as we are running short of time, I'm not taking questions or anything. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
You prepare questions and answer yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Venkat.
Quick comments, if anyone has quick comments, we will analyze it.
Bhivunandri is there. That's true.
Some quick comments, if anyone has any. Otherwise, we will move on to that.
Yeah, please.
Very quick, so I, of course, I quite didn't follow the whole thing. But one small point is that like there is a statement made saying that okay, most of the families belong to, let's say, marginal, small marginal farming families. And also, let's say, more than 20% are self-sufficient. So there is a kind of social and economic advantage that the community has. But so with that, you still have primary education, which is comparable at national level. So my point is, what is the point of relating to that status to educational achievement, unless we are saying that the state has failed in, let's say, more on the government side. So we also know that Odisha is one of those few states in India where the budgetary allocation for education has been actually quite impressive.
Yes,
in a-
yes.
in a
Control all
relative-
delete kare.
relative.
Okay, तो जेटा करी. Yes.
So where do you see actually in terms of policy, like, where do you want to see change? And whether the investment is less or because the large population belongs to certain.
ଆଜି ଖରାପ ଦିନ ନା କଣ?
That the issue, because in primary education we are doing very well, despite all.
खोल लो नहीं सर.
Number is okay. Number is like fascinating.
Anybody?
I was doing this also
की help करते हैं.
for,
Any ପାରିବ ସେଇଟା ଜାମ୍ବୁରୁ ଆଇଛି.
and it was kind of like, I mean, go like that 7, 8, 9 class, they have already done. But the ability to do a small calculation and reading activities and all these things, very less.
Yeah, it's working.
So I think I have two observations on education. First is the primary sector.
ये चीज मोर अच्छी लाइए दर अच्छी. पेन ड्राइव अच्छी.
That is interesting,
Pen
no
drive.
doubt about it. But
They
this
recognize color. Look at it. Removable disk. Removable disk.
quality is very, very nice. That is the, yeah. If you look at SS survey, they are.
Yes, no, no.
And second thing that.
I don't have PowerPoint presentation. I just draw
What
from the
government
paper.
of Odisha has done lately,
Man talking points I'll tell.
drawing the schools from the private spots. Wherever there is a less.
I'll tell from the talking points. Kitchen I can manage 10 minutes.
So now what is happening is that.
We know how to. And what is the mood of the audience, that also know.
Basically marginalized, places. It highlights all.
Navigation দেখাউছ কোটি ঠিক আছে. Nothing is seen here.
That is why.
Screen setting ପଳେଇଛି ନା.
ଏଠି ଦେଖାଯିବନି.
ଏଠି ଦେଖାଉନି.
ନା.
मला ସେ ଏରୋ ଜମା ନାହିଁ ନା.
ଏଠି ଗୋଟେ କଣ?
ସେ ଇଏ ହବନି. କାହିଁ ଆପଣ ସବୁ ନେଗେଟିଭ କରିଦେଲେ.
ଯାହାର ଇଏ ହବ ସିଏ ଆସିଲେ କରିବ।
Yes, ଠିକ ଅଛି. I am sitting there. He is right. ଏଠି ହଉନି କିଛି. ନହେଲେ ଆମ ଲ୍ୟାପଟପ୍ ଖୋଲି ଦେଇଥିଲି. ମୋ ପାଖରେ ଟକିଂ ପଏଣ୍ଟସ୍ ଅଛି ନା. I don't have to read the. No, there is a problem in the.
No, but this we are not able to get back to the screen. That is.
It's not moving, na? No, how can I? Screen is not moving.
ନାଇଁ ସ୍କ୍ରିନରେ କିଛି ଦେଖାଯାଉନି ହ୍ୟାଙ୍ଗ
ଆଗକୁ ଯାଉନି.
ସ୍କ୍ରିନ୍ ସେୟାର କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଦରକାର ଏଟା
ଡାଇରେକ୍ଟ ସ୍କ୍ରିନ୍ ସେୟାର କିଛି କରିବାର ନାହିଁ.
ଏଠି ଦେଖାଉନି
ଦେଖାଉନି. ଏଇଟା ମୁଭ୍ କରୁଛି କି? ମୁଭ୍ କରୁଛି କି?
Most of the time,
ହଁ.
ଏଟା ବନ୍ଦ କରିଥିବ ନା ପ୍ରୋଜେକ୍ଟର ମୋଡରେ ଥିବ ଏଟା କୋଉଟା ଗଲା
ଏ ଭାଇ ତମ ଲ୍ୟାପଟପ୍ ଟିକେ ଦେଖା ଟିକେ.
This is.
what is that
ଓକେ. ଆସିଲା ତ?
ଶୁଣୁନି କାହାରି କଥା.
ନା ନାଇଁ ଶୁଣୁନି. ସେଟା ଯୋଉ ସେଟିଂଟା ଚେଞ୍ଜ କରିଦେଇଥିଲି ଦେଖ. ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ସାର୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ବହୁତ. ସନ୍ଧ୍ୟାବେଳେ ଆପଣ ମାଲିକ ଟିକେ ରୁହ ବାବା ଏଠି 10 ମିନିଟ୍ ରୁହ ପଳେଇବା. ଆମେ 10 ମିନିଟ୍ ଛାଡ଼ିଦେବୁ.
ଏବେ ସାର୍ କାହା କାହା ଅଛି ଆପଣଙ୍କ ଉପରେ କାହା ଅଛି ଅଛି ଲବି ସାର୍ ତ ଅଛି ଏଇ ଦିଟା ଅଛି ନାଇଁ ଆଉ ବିଶ୍ୱ ତ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ସେସନଟା ବୋଧେ ଆଜି ହଉ ସାର୍
Yes, it is here.
ଆସିଲା. ଓକେ ଏଠି ଆସୁନି.
ଆସିବ ଆସିବ
ସେଠି ଆଇଲା ବେଳକୁ ଏଠି ଆସୁନି. ଏଠି ଆଇଲା ବେଳକୁ
ଏଟା ଏବେ କିଏ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ କରିବେ?
ମୁଁ କରିଛି.
ସରି ତ.
ତ ଆପଣ ଏବେ ପ୍ରେଜେଣ୍ଟ କରିବେ ତ? ଆପଣ ଗୁଗଲ ରେ ଏଥିରେ ସେୟାର କରିବେ?
ଗୁଗଲ କାହାକୁ ସେୟାର କରିବେ?
ଅନ୍ୟମାନେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଅଡିଏନ୍ସ ଅଛନ୍ତି
ଏ ଭଗବାନ.
ନା କିଏ ଚୁରା କରିନ.
ମୁଁ ମାନେ ପୁରା ପେପରଟା ଅଛି. ମୁଁ ଜଷ୍ଟ ଇଏ ତ ଇଏ କରିଦେବି. ଜାଣିଛି କ'ଣ କହିବି ହେଲା.
ଏତେ ଗରମ ହେଇକି କାହିଁ ଏମିତି ହଉଛ?
କଷ୍ଟ କରି କାମ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ମୋବାଇଲ ଦେଖି କହିଦେବେ ମୋ ଲାପଟପ୍ ଖୋଲି ଦେଇଥିଲେ ହେଇଥାନ୍ତା ତ
କରନ୍ତୁ କରନ୍ତୁ
ହେଲା
ଆପଣ ହଁ ମାନେ ସେଟା ଦେଖିବା ଦରକାର ବି।
Okay, sir, so please.
5:13 sir କେତେ 5
10-15 minutes.
Okay,
You
15
can
minutes, okay.
summarize that.
Sir, actually, good evening to all. This chapter, what we have done is that we have given a historical sketch of the disease health hazard. So, we have given a historical sketch of the disease burden of Odisha from 1950s. But however, we faced a lot of difficulty in obtaining data, and SAR is the source for providing us the 1948 governor's speech. We looked into the governor's speech to understand that what was the disease burden, because in the governor's speech they might be speaking about that. Then we summarize from that document and try to understand in different decades what are the disease prevalence, but there is no data. The data was like in population terms. 1,000 people died, 1,500 people died, in Cuttack 12 people died, this type of data. It's nothing, no denominator. So you cannot make any statistical inference like that. But what we have done is that we have tried to understand the disease prevalence during from 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, what has happened to that. In the 60s, just after independence, what we found tuberculosis, leprosy, filaria, cholera, smallpox, malaria, that was the major prevalent. And these diseases, if you look into, it is a pattern which is linked to the districts. Some of the basically southern and western districts, the disease patterns are linked. Basically, the southern districts, most of them are malaria prone, and the western and other districts, the other diseases were there. Puri and others were leprosy and others were there. Historically, they in the governor's speech they have written. And if you look into 60, early 60s, we found that there are some data which are available. And for example, one the data that we found out that in that governor's speech, which mentioned about fever constituted 57% of the deaths during those periods. If we look into the entire death, fever constituted around 58% of the total deaths there. So that is a condition, and there are lots of malaria and fever means it's a group, large group, and which constitutes many other diseases. So that's what I want to tell. Then the cholera outbreaks, what we found in the state, which become epidemic during 1963, and especially it started in Cuttack and Baleshwar. They mentioned that in 1963, cholera epidemics was found in Cuttack and Baleshwar. Then another major event which influenced historically the disease profile was the Kalahandi, basically the drought which happened in Kalahandi during 1965. That also affected basically the disease profile of Odisha. Then this pattern of disease, basically this communicable diseases, the prevalence of communicable diseases, that continues up to 70s also. And if you look in the 70s, we got some data, and if you look into that, 70% of the total deaths was due to the communicable diseases during the 70s. Then from the 90s onwards, we got very clear figure from the disease burden studies, which ICMR conducted. And that disease burden studies, we looked into the data about different, basically in 90s. And if you look into this figure, this gives you basically what is the proportion of basically the total disease burden between the communicable and non-communicable diseases in 90 and 2016. And if you look into that, there is a shift in the disease burden from 90 to 2016. And in 2016, you see most of the basically non-communicable disease NCD burden that came out, and here it is clearly mentioned. You see this CKD percentage in you see it was 0.9, then it increased to 2. Then road traffic accident, it was 0.9, it increased to 2.3. COPD, basically cardio, that increased from 2.2 to 2.3. Stroke, it's a major disease which happened 2.7 to 5.8. So there is a specifically what has happened. There is a change in the disease pattern. To summarize, so 60s, 70s, the communicable diseases that continues up to 70s. Then 90s onwards, you have a more pressure from the non-communicable diseases, and the disease burden changed. Then the second approach what I looked into the mortality indicators of Odisha, which I just want to show you that I will not take much time on the mortality indicators. And what the mortality indicators, as Sir was also telling, we discussed about the IMR, MMR trend, then then death rate, birth rate, what happened. And the two messages what I am giving here is that the gap between India and Odisha, that is closing, and that closing happened more after 2000. That is, so IMR, MMR, all the distance between Odisha and India, the gap is gradually closing, and that closing became more apparent in 2000 onwards, that we find. If we look into all those data, which we, all health status indicators,
Closing means it is declining.
declining, yeah, you can see
Converging.
this converging. Yeah, closing means the gap is closing. You see this IMR, you see towards this 2021, this IMR earlier, you see the gap out India and Odisha, and that that gap is converged. That means Odisha is matching towards the Indian pattern. Then most of the indicators which we saw, MMR is available for 1997. Earlier data was not available. 1998, and that also, that is that changes is happening. Life expectancy almost converging. Then we also looked into CDR, the death rate, and also birth rate data are different periods. So that is what is the story coming out there.
Back to that slide.
Okay. It's a, yeah. I am coming. No, sir, life expectancy. Yeah.
Life expectancy. 69.3, 69.4.
Yeah, so that's we are almost close to the India. So that's the recent. Okay. Then we looked into the approaches. Basically, what are the healthcare approaches? What Odisha did basically towards that. And when we also looked into from that after the independence. After independence up to 60s, basically it was a targeted disease control approach, and that was morely influenced by the Planning Commission. And it is mostly this is National Filaria Control Program, National TB Control Program, National Malaria Control Program. So that was in the up to 60s that actually managed. So up to 60s, what we find that as a targeted communicable diseases approach program which was introduced in Odisha. Then also up to from 47 to 60, what we find that medical education and tertiary care is given emphasis. 1944 ACB Medical College, 1964 the Barampur Medical College, all these were established. So two major approaches which are happened during those period. One is that the government of Odisha was implementing most of the National Malaria Control, National Disease Control Program up to 1960s or early 60s. Then there was some emphasis on the tertiary care. That means the medical education was given emphasis, so that to address the gap in the basically the medical doctors gap, other paramedics gap. In order to address that, they created the medical infrastructure. Then if you look into 70s, in 1971, sir is there, the population growth was one of the highest during 1971. And that period, then the approach changed from the disease control approach to population control approach, where family planning was given major emphasis in 75, 76, historically. So up to 70s, it was a disease control approach. Then 75, 76, what happened? We shifted from the disease control approach to more population control approach and family planning, and the 1975 emergency. So family planning was given. Then another major incident happened internationally. That was 1978. That was Alma Ata Declaration, and that 1978 Alma Ata Declaration, that emphasis on the emphasizing the comprehensive primary care and health for all. So taking cue from this Alma Ata Declaration of 1978, India and many other states in the country, they basically tried to emphasize on creating sub-centers, primary health centers, basically expanding the primary care approach that was basically given. Then 78, after 78, then that another major event happened in India was 1991 economic reforms. And then the 91 economic reforms, what has happened historically, in the 91 economic reforms, what has happened, they emphasis on private sector participation. Then from that structural adjustment program, there was a reduction in social sector spending that affected the entire health. That also I have emphasized that, seen that what has happened during that period. And after to that, since they emphasize on increasing efficiency of health sector, user fees were introduced. 1997, Government of Odisha introduced user fee. That was a fallout of this economic reform program which was introduced in 1991. So economic reform program, three things has happened. One is the private sector participation, emphasis on insurance. Then also with the structural adjustment program, there is a change in the basically health budget or health expenditure that happened in 1991. Then after that, 1991, in 2000 MDG come, Millennium Development Goals. So again in the Millennium Development Goals, there is a major change from the, again we come to the targeted approach. IMR reduction should be from this to this, MMR reduction from this to this. There is no holistic health system approach. What I am telling is that from, if you look into historical the approaches, we first started with a disease control approach, then family planning, then 1991 Alma Ata Declaration, we went to some comprehensive primary care. Then we come to the 2000 when the MDG goal came. In during that MDG goal, we again targeted on the targeted interventions of reduction of IMR, MMR, again a targeted disease specific approach. Then if you look into that after 2000 onwards, in 2005-6 onwards, there are some changes which happened in Odisha, very specific approaches that look like infant mortality reduction mission. Some of the state-specific schemes were introduced in 2005 onwards. And what they did was, also another major things which happened in 2013 was creation of the Odisha State Medical Corporation, which was basically mostly looking into the supply chain management of healthcare. So that they looked into. 2012-13, that was the, historically that has happened. Then most recently, 2018, there's a major and paradigm shift in the health system where they shifted from the public health delivery approach to an insurance mode. There's a long debate which is going on in the country, whether we want to strengthen the public health system or we need to go to the insurance route. So there's a lot of debate. So then Odisha shifted from this, that again in 2018, they introduced the Biju Swasthya Kalyan Yojana, which is an insurance mode. So historically, I can summarize then approaches में 70 disease specific Alma Ata, then 90s MDG, then to 91 economic reforms, user fee was introduced, efficiency, 2012-13, some programs were introduced like Odisha State Medical Corporation, then in 2018 insurance. That was a historically what has happened to the basically the approaches which you, I am not describing everything what has done. We have detailed discussion about what is done in the different approaches which Odisha government has taken. Now, after doing this, we have looked into the basically current challenges in the health system. And then when I'm looking into the current challenges in the health system, I have used a framework which is used by the WHO building block framework. That's a WHO building block framework. Then in that WHO building block framework, the people who work in health system, they know what is this WHO building block framework. In that WHO building block framework, we look into human resources, financing, governance. These are the some of the arms in which we look into the health basically. So that was a more of a holistic health system approach. You have to look into health not from a disease specific point of view. You have to look health from a health system point of view. If you health system point of view, then you have to look into what is the financing happening, what is the human resource happening, what is the health infrastructure happening, what is the research and development is happening. So this is a more of a, there is a changes in the, so from looking into that, we looked into what has happened to the financing, what has happened to the human resources, what has happened to the service delivery, quality, all those things we have looked into. And I want to highlight 2-3 important points. So far as the financing and human resources is concerned, human resources has always become a problem, but Odisha is trying to address those human resources gaps. If you look into the WHO standard of human resources, for example, one study which recently one of our colleagues, PHFI, they conducted, they found out that for every 10, the total human resources, including doctors, paramedics, it should be for 23 for 10,000. Odisha is 9 for 10,000. That is the most recent figure. Similarly, doctor population ratio is very less. And if you look into the infrastructure or human resources, that is a spiral pattern in the sense that the regional differences, most of the rural-urban differences, and the differences if you look into the tribal districts, that's a spiral pattern which is emerging from these basically the human resources gap. Then coming to the financing, one of the major issues in India, not only in Odisha, is a low public investment in healthcare. Even 75 years of independence, we are still currently spending around 1.2 to 1.3% of the GDP. Odisha also figures similarly regarding the public spending on healthcare. And one of the major issues is that out-of-pocket expenditure. And the last health accounts which we did for Odisha, in the health account report, that indicated 76% of the total health expenditure is out-of-pocket expenditure. Out of the 76%, 58% is drugs. And from that was 2013-14, and 2018-19, the National Health Account report suggests that is the out-of-pocket expenditure is reduced to 53%. So one of the major challenges still remains is that
Even after introduction of this
insurance scheme, So that's a recent health accounts which government of India does. They give about Odisha and all other states health expenditure, and they mention that it is till 53%. And similarly, we call it in economics, it's called 70-70 syndrome. That means 70% is OP, and out of that 70%, 70% is medicine. So therefore, this 70-70 syndrome, we have to, if you want to address this 70-70 syndrome, so we have to look into that. What are the issues? If government is spending huge amount of money on the OSMCL, Odisha State Medical Corporation, where they have basically tried to fix the problems where in the supply chain, but why medicine, government is telling that medicine is available, and what is happening to that is a question. One of the studies indicates in the primary care level, most of the issues, that essential drug list, if you find in the primary care level, there is a little bit of issue that the supply is not reaching, indenting is the issue. So many issues are there in the supply side issue. So then, coming after discussing all those issues, we have given a futuristic plan to what should be done. All these are the current challenges of every section. We have health expenditure from 50s, 90s, this GSDP growth rate, service delivery. Then I'm coming to the what are the major recommendations in each sector. We have tried to find out the future strategies on health financing, service delivery. So 2 or 3 things what I am telling, that in the service delivery, one of the issues which we need to do is that primary care, which is the crux. If we invest, Government of India health policy tells 2017, you should invest 70% of the resources to primary care. So if we invest in primary care, that is a win-win situation. That means it will take care of the screening, it will reduce the future disease burden. So if you invest a huge amount of money on primary care, it is a win-win situation, so that you don't invest more on the secondary and tertiary care, you prevent a lot of disease. So also COVID has taught you that what is the importance of public health or prevention. So 70% of the, at least 70% of the resources as Government of India prescribes should be given to primary care. Then in terms of the budget, at least we should spend 2 to 3% of the GDP or 2.5% of the GDP from the 1%. Then in the human resources, we have identified as per the IPHS norm, Indian Public Health Standard norm, we have to fulfill all these human resource requirement, what should be done. Then we also gone into very details into different disease, communicable disease, NCD. Another major thing which has happened is the NCD. And in future, we have a continued disease burden of non-communicable disease. Along with that, the NCD burden has come up. So we have now a dual disease burden. So in order to address an NCD, will in future, as we have seen that there is a change in the life expectancy, again 60 to 75 years person in again that has happened. Then these people will mostly suffer from most of these NCDs, and then we have to create specific provisions to address those issues for these old age people. Then at the same time, you cannot basically neglect your communicable diseases and the burden of mortality from the child, maternal mortality, and also the other nutritional aspects which are coming. So in this way, we have tried to address those issues, and I will now conclude.
Thank you.
Have you done any work on occupational disease?
Occupational disease, here we have not mentioned anything. We can give another topic on occupational disease. And also climate change and health, there is one topic on climate change. Any things I have left, Kadam can add.
Title is, content is more than the title.
No, this is not the title. Title is, he's there.
Title we will give ultimately, even if you give. Yeah, any other question?
Excellent presentation.
Yeah,
Very,
that's it.
very, very comprehensive. Excellent presentation. So I was only wondering, any comments on, you were saying that since 1991, the private sector playing a big way. So what about the whole question of the access to medicine? Whether the state has played any specific role in sort of making medicine available cheaper?
Yeah.
So is there any policy?
Yeah. They've introduced Niramoy scheme. Niramoy scheme. In that Niramoy scheme, they actually, when BSQI is introduced, there are 2 features of BSQI. One is that it encompasses the universal health coverage component. That means everybody, irrespective of income, caste, religion, if they go to a public sector, they will get everything free. That is first point of BSQI. And the second point of BSQI is that those vulnerable population, which is around 71 lakh households, which they have increased to 90 lakhs due to the political reasons. So these 71 lakh vulnerable households, for their any critical care, they will basically access care from the private sector through insurance route. So the first component which is given, like everybody, irrespective of income caste, they should access public system and they should not spend anything from their pocket. That already includes that in that Niramaya scheme, the emphasis on essential drug list and free medicine should be distributed.
Sorry, Babu, that's
Just one small additional question.
Yes.
Is there anything like what Bangladesh did in terms of like the Ganaswasthya Kendra?
Yeah,
for
yeah,
instance,
yeah.
okay. So has there been any initiative at the state level to manufacture and make the medicine?
No.
available at cheaper cost?
No. The medicine all they basically procure.
So- yes, you have a question.
Use the basic secure information out of pocket money.
NSSO डाटा और क्या हमसे हाउस होल्ड सब इतने कर सकते क्या?
No.
There are few studies, but
See,
See, analyze that.
Eh?
That part you have not analyzed.
no, NSSO.
Any analysis is that?
Yeah, that we have analyzed.
Explain.
Sir, what NSSO? Okay,
out of pocket.
out of pocket
Out of pocket. Only.
only.
What are the suppose
What are the
my
components
pocket,
of?
my pocket? I spent about 1.3 lakhs last year. 1.6 lakhs before the 1920, 1921, 1.3 lakhs. It's only because of sanitizers, conditions, etc.
It is COVID.
COVID time. So you have taken from 18 to 20.
Sir, NSSO, I just tell you what is the NSSO out of pocket expenditure component. They have a medical and non-medical. In the medical, they take into doctor's fee, medicine, diagnostic, and patient transportation. In the non-medical, they take the others transportation, accommodation.
By standard.
So that is the standard NSSO expenditure. And, so that too, and that is the only thing, as many of us in this room that will agree. In a representative sample, that is the only thing which is available, which we can estimate the out-of-pocket expenditure. And based upon that, the health account report, which is by the Ministry of Health, they also depend upon that, and most of the researchers, they depend on that.
The insurance doesn't cover that. Out-of-pocket expenditure, insurance doesn't.
Sir, if you have a insurance, your out-of-pocket expenditure will be nil. Na?
Zero. See,
If you have insurance, then
see-
insurance will cover your out-of-pocket.
No, all expenses will not be covered.
That you will have some expenses. Yeah, that's
what insurance doesn't cover, you have to
you
pay.
have to pay. Yeah.
And that will also be sizable.
No, of course. That
No,
is
sir,
not-
if you want to stay in a 5-star room,
5-star.
8,000, suppose your insurance is 3,000 that room rent. If you stay 8,000, obviously 5,000 you have to pay.
ସେ କଥା କହୁନି ସେ 3,000 ମୁଁ ଏଗ୍ରି କଲି ତାଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ
Okay.
ତା ବାଦ ବି out of
There will be some out of pocket. Yeah.
it will also be heavy ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ନୁହେଁ ଯେ ସବୁ ଖବର କରିଦବ ସେ 5 ଲକ୍ଷ ଦଉଛି ବୋଲି କଣ ସବୁ ଖବର ହେଇଯିବ ନା କଣ
5 ଲକ୍ଷ ସବୁ କଭର କରିକିରି ଯଦି ପେସେଣ୍ଟ ଯାଇଛି ତାହେଲେ ଯାହା ନବ ତାଇ ହଉଛି ଆଉଟ ଅଫ ପକେଟ।
ହଁ
Yeah.
ଏଇଟା ହଉଛି ସବୁଠାରୁ ବଡ କଥାଟା ଏବେ ତାହିଁ ଘଟୁଛି।
So, Sarita, this is a very comprehensive work so far as information that is available. One good thing you have done is you have actually situated benchmarks to have the evolutionary account of the system in the state. I would suggest only 3 things to make it a part of document like this.
Sure.
The reality is that there is still non-utilization of modern healthcare.
Yeah.
Because even recently I have also written, this room people may be surprised that in India still 13% non-utilization of modern healthcare happens in
Okay,
the
that-
overall. When you need healthcare and you don't use
13% is India.
India. So yes, it is
Yeah, NSS
there.
is there, right?
Where will I analyze from?
Yeah, NSS is there, I know.
So
But in our state, it's more than 30.
absolutely, that's why I'm
No,
emphasizing.
I'll take
So,
from
non-utilization.
We have gone to PSC କେତେବେଳେ visit କରିଥିଲ?
एक प्रोग्राम रे
ଏଇ program
हम लॉट ऑफ रिसर्च करछु तने कोर्स जाइते
business.
Yes,
So
yes.
what does that mean?
No, I'm saying that the document should highlight the regions in Western Odisha and extreme regions. The namesake hospitals, but
no, it
there is
was-
because access, physical access, and motorable road access, it makes non-utilization a very common phenomenon. Non-utilization dynamics, as sir says, must be very high,
Yeah.
and it needs to be highlighted because you can't just say everything is golden. And all.
Yeah.
The second aspect that I want you to analyze is little bit connect with the government's scheme of what is you should. I'm giving you terminology. provisioning versus protection.
Okay, got it.
Because government is interested in protecting,
Mm.
but you cannot protect everyone. So what is the strategy? Strategy is they should protect some, and they should enable those who can protect themselves.
Right, got it.
So there has to be the scheme of things that there are people who don't take insurance, but you can take insurance.
Yeah.
So enabling protection and provisioning protection can be
Yes.
two aspects which you can write.
Right.
And last thing I would say is that in this kind of a chapter, you should write something related to what is the response of the health system to the evolving transition of the population itself. Because, for instance, there is expenses if you divide, there is NCD expense, this if you, something disaggregation with the emerging changes that is happening. A structure is changing. All of us will get NCD. Is it that they are targeting? Is this change responsive? And the allocations are responsive or not, literally.
Okay.
If allocations are responsive, then, in a document like this, something interesting people should
Okay,
read.
okay, sir, okay, sir.
So if you can do that,
That will be wonderful.
okay. Thank you very much. Well done.
Anyway, it is a wonderful paper.
Yes, yes. Okay. So next we have next presentation.
Patas Adivasi.
Sir, actually, I don't know whether we were scheduled to present it.
Yes, yes.
हाँ
Yes.
एकदम शेड्यूल रे होते
Keep it.
काली से हैरान है बे कांदी बे
Sir,
आज
actually, I have a pen
dot
there.
ये
Put it. What is your paper on?
Sir, status of Adivasi in Odisha and their path to progress.
Okay. This is Tumakant, no?
Sir?
You are writing with Tumakant?
No, sir.
Oh, okay. With him. Tribals, no?
Yes, sir.
आदिवासी भाई
So, yeah. Status of Adivasis in Odisha and their path to progress.
Sir.
आरा बोर पानी पी लो
Some say this is one. Do I need to do some certain extra?
No,
It's also
just-
online also. No, you can directly go.
You stop, you will share it, it is fine. Otherwise, now nobody will be there.
But
Even
then-
if we are sitting here, doesn't mean everybody will be online.
Okay, but then
I mean, share it. If it is, you can. It's good.
yes.
देख पवित्र
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, I need to.
But you didn't present. Share achi. That is.
ए अमरेंद्र उड़ा के
No, no, it's shared, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So, good evening, all. Actually, I will be presenting this chapter, which we have prepared the draft. Myself and Professor Ravina Patra on the status of Adivasis in Odisha and the path to progress. And my scheme of presentation will be like, because we have prepared the draft, actually, we will also looking for the inputs from this audience, also those who are available online, to improve it often further. But then, whatever we're done, I'll be presenting with this scheme that with some introductory background that will define the concept, because see, it's we've been using this concept of ST, Adivasi, Janajati, but the concept is differently used in different places. So we'll try to understand the concept, because there are a couple of concepts in this topic, which means Adivasis, their status, then path to progress. So we'll discuss that. Then what has been the constitutional provision and the development strategies which has affected the Adivasis, that we'll discuss in the background. Then I'll also have some, because the title of the chapter says status of Adivasis in Odisha. So we'll give some status, and we have broadly divided it into 4 categories. the status with respect to demography, with respect to economy. They will give some idea about their agriculture practices and this thing. Because see, it's when we search for literature, there was a lot of literature on anthropological and ethnographical studies, but from the economics perspective, there were very few studies actually. All over India, not necessarily in India, Odisha, all over India. So today, in fact, another webinar is going on in another Madhya Pradesh. Somehow, actually, I got a call from them actually to attend, but because of my commitment here, I couldn't. So see, it's first time, or not necessarily first time, but then having the perspective of an economist to the Adivasis, uh, we had some problems. So that's why we have broadly divided their status into demography, economy, education, and health. Then from there, then we try to understand the structure of an Adivasi economy. Of course, broadly, we followed the talk which Jean Trees had given in the famous Gopinath Manthi Memorial talk. Actually, he had extensively and very nicely presented the structure of an Adivasi economy. Then we had given some the conclusion with some suggestive path to progress. Remember, actually, sir, as I said, most of the studies have been in anthropological and ethnographical way. We have tried to look at from the perspective of of the student of economics. So, SWOT Adivasi is actually the concept connotes and is generally understood in literature. It's refers to the worldwide. It's refers to the indigenous people because interchangeably these words are used, or originally inhabitants in a particular location, or the past inhabitants, past settlers of the region. Alternatively, this Bonavasi, each word has a meaning. Actually, Bonavasi means they stay in the jungle. Bona is jungle, so Bonavasi. Then another, some actually stay in the mountain. They have there is different words. So these are different terminologies interchangeably used. For our analysis, what we have done, we have definitely resorted to this concept of ST, which the constitution had defined, and tried to understand the Adivasis. Also, we have tried to go and meet them personally, have some understanding of their economy, their culture, their society, and have given our suggestions. If you look at the uh, status of the Adivasis and demographically, as I said, these terminologies are interchangeably used, but in our analysis, particularly for the background, this thing we have taken the STs of Odisha as the Adivasis. So that can have some contestation or some resentment by somebody, but then we have used that one. So if you look at the demographic composition of the tribes in Odisha, it's the Odisha has the third largest percentage share of the scheduled tribe population of India, constitute roughly 23%, 22.8% of the total population of Odisha. Uh, of course, this concept of 62 tribes, because I was really surprised, the Bhuya as a community is a tribe here, but the same community is a caste in Jharkhand, which we have 62 scheduled tribe in our state and 13 PVTG, that particularly vulnerable tribes in our state. Then
Sorry, just
what has been
you have shared it in Google Meet, no?
yes,
Okay.
it's already shared. It was
Shared on Google Meet or not?
yes, it was already shared. No? Oh, I need to share it also.
Here, actually, Google presentation.
It is shared.
That is fine.
Fine.
No, no,
No. It's but then what does, as I said, notes with this background, as is repeatedly saying that we have used this terminology interchangeably. Try to see what are the constitutional provisions for the STs. Of course, they are defined like this in our constitution. Such tribes or tribal communities or part of the groups within such tribes or tribal communities as are deemed under Article 342 to be scheduled tribes for the purpose of this constitution. We have used this concept of scheduled tribe, and they are scheduled in the constitution to give some protections because see, it was realized that they need special protections and to a certain extent, there was some understanding of Nehru with Eluin. Eluin thought that tribes and castes are different, but tribes are not definitely the castes. But Nehru had this opinion that okay, they are similar. But this are not, though not same, similar. That's why actually this. But ultimately, he also realized that Mr. Nehru also realized that no, these tribes require specific benefits and a constitutional support is required for them to bring them to the mainstream economy or mainstream society. That's what actually there was provision. So um, there's of course of late government has been constituting different committees and others to look after the interest of the tribes. I do not know actually. Of course, many of us also I have seen people reading from the literature claim themselves to be the experts in tribe without meeting them or without consulting them and without understanding their structures. But at least we have tried. Sir is in fact stationed in Korakut, which is one of the hot spot of tribe of people who live tribe. I am from also a tribal hamlet place surrounded with tribal hamlet. So that's what actually the advantage. Then what has been the constitutional provisions and why we require a special interest on tribes, particularly from the lens of an economist or lens of the student of economist? Because you see, if you initially in the beginning planning period, the Nehru Mahalanobis model thrive for heavy large scale industries that led to the displacement. And unfortunately, I am not making any political comment, but it's a fact that the largest casualties are the tribes. It's a fact. In fact, I can refer to one of Sir's talk in TV where he said, "No, these in Odisha also, these companies come, they mati chana machine is that you said, they come, they extract the minerals, tribes those who are depending on their resources, forest and other things that's depleted, and after certain when the project was on, probably they had some livelihood, but once it is over, then they do not have anything to fall back on. So they've been the largest casualties, and the displacement is more for the tribes. So what they say, of course, these are not my words. I have highlighted one in red and other one is in green. The red one is the modern temples. I do not believe in such strong words. Model temples of India are built on the blood and sweat of the millions of people. Most of them are tribes. This is actually Fernandez's word. It's not my word. Okay, so I've given this. But the other part, as I said, Nehru also stated that the problems of the tribals are specific, and we need to have some targeted projects and targeted programs for these tribes to first make them feel that they are part of the mainstream, and then involve them into the mainstream. That's what actually the plant development strategy, as I said, it has displacement which has really affected the tribes seriously. Then actually,
with this figure, 40% tribals and another 20% consider Dalits and other rural poor.
yes, sir. Actually, this is because this I've taken from the literature. I'll give the this actually is exactly. I do not remember. I'll check the literature. Actually, this I've taken from a study which was done by the. Hmm. With this thing, actually, second thing, as I said, the paper says status of the Adivasi. So, status we have divided into demography, economy, health, and education. Then demographic status, and it's interestingly, the information on the tribe actually is not that easily available. It's a fact, okay. So if you look at the demographic profile, you can see the sex, what is that actually, the tribal population, male and female, if you see, it's almost same. Actually, sex ratio,
51 census.
51 census. Actually, at the beginning, it was like that. In fact, now also its demographic profile, if you look, the sex ratio is in favor of the woman. Actually,
Small people.
for the others, actually, it's a huge difference. But for them, actually, it's almost no same. Then if you look at the trend of the ST population, these are all actually, I'm skipping. How much time I do have? I think
10 minutes.
okay. So this we can actually, if you look at the decadal growth rate of the population, this is from 1991 to 2011. You see the growth rate of the tribal population in Odisha is some 15.8, and for all India it is 24.5. So similarly, actually, decadal growth rate for the total population is 16.25. If you look at the fertility rate actually for the tribals, I will go when we go to the health part, we'll see the fertility rate of the tribes is higher than the others, but their decadal growth rate is lower than the. So it could be because of the higher death rate. So as I said, we had 62. We have 62 tribes, out of which 13. Sorry, and no 13 particularly vulnerable tribes in Odisha. Then, if you look at the particularly vulnerable types which you have identified, to give them some specific importance and specific packages to update their status. Uh, See the gender ratio also, which actually the idea which you got, it's almost 50 50 in favor of that. Then economic, what we have done actually, this is the data which is from the planning commission, that gives the percentage of ST population below poverty line in 11 12. Yes, actually it's so all India figure rural STs, below poverty line in 2011-12 was 43.5 for us. For India, it was, for Odisha it is 63.5. For at the urban, actually, because of the better no livelihood facilities or employment facilities, all India figure is 21.1%, whereas for Odisha it is 30, almost 40, 39.7. Now, if you look at the work participation rate, well, this is a little surprising. We need to do a bit of more analysis about it. In Odisha, the work participation rate by the rural people has been declining since 1991. Of course, that's a similar trend for the India. For India, in urban, it's less. Actually, it's 36.8. Actually, and all India figure is some 37.2. But the reason we need to dig out actually what could be the reason that people generally migrate from the rural to urban area to have some employment opportunity. But then what could be the reason? Actually, we need to look into that, and I actually would expect some suggestions in that. Then, of course, if you look at we have discussed this thing. Then, if you look at the agriculture pattern of this, because most of them are dependent on forest and agriculture and the mountains like that. Of course, of late they have migrated to other source of livelihood, but then it was agriculture which was the main source of their livelihood. Of course, because historically they've been ancestrally they've been gatherer and this thing, so they're not permanent settlers, and the concept of owning land was not there. If you look actually go to the tribal village nowadays, of course in the secondary data we get that these people have this much of land holding, this thing, but the concept of individual land holding is absent in many tribes. They have a community land holding. It's a fact actually. I have even today also it's a fact. So, but if you look at the landholding pattern and the change in landholding from 1980 till 2015-16, the area which was which was operated by the tribes has declined by some 2.6%. Overall, it has declined, of course, 12 to for 12 point by 12 point almost 5%. Good reason could be we're releasing too much of agricultural land for other usages, like because of the growth of the population, releasing it for housing purposes, also industry purposes, other purposes. So the area operated is declining, and average holding size also declined. It has declined more for the tribes. It has declined for others also, the overall decline is almost 30%, but for the tribes it is almost 39%. Then if we come back to the education, literacy rate actually it's really very low. But then actually, as a student of economics, I have some reservation about this concept of literacy. See, it's literacy probably is understood like this, that anybody who can start could be, who can put the signature somewhere. But then it should be one who can read, write, and understand the language, understand the subject. Though there are these figures are given, it's well and fine. We've been doing well. Literacy has been increasing in the remote areas, but then if you see understanding, I don't think actually no this is the right figures. But then still it is increasing over the period of time in comparison to the other population, though it's less. And of course, then gender wise also it's further less within the tribes. Then gender gap in literacy rate, what I said. Then literacy rate of scheduled tribes by residents. Rural urban also, if you see, it's of course it's obvious in the urban areas somehow they go. In rural areas, the tribal kid gets off, probably rushes to the forest to have something like that. That's why even if you put them forcibly in a school, they may not be interested in that. That's why actually this residence differences of job. Then enrollment at different level. This is actually one interesting, because this national education policy 2020 is now coming out with this idea that we should have preschooling. Actually, the structure which you have now, preschooling some 6 years something exactly, I don't remember the figure. But then these tribes in Odisha do not have any preschooling. Actually, probably I studied in a school which was in the tribal area, and my friend got married when we was in ninth standard, because actually we didn't know what is the meaning of marriage. It was a tribal kid. Actually, he said, "I'm getting married." So it's actually when they enter into the school, formal school standard or something, by then actually their age is little high. No question of this, no preschooling, that nursery, pre-nursery. This is really absent. Then dropout rates is really serious, as we also hear from the news and other things, that dropouts, student from Ekalabya schools and others, they jump and leave. This is there. Then health, toilet facilities. Still doubt this figure.
What type of diseases they have? How type of rogo, really
Sir, actually, it's data I do not have, but if I actually, if I we have some data, some anemia, something, because of this health related indicators we got, whether the body mass index and other things I know. But then DGs, if you see, unless and until you do not do a testing and recognize what kind of disease, they don't go for the testing. So let's say TB, or let's say a particular disease which is, but it's largely related to the malnutrition or something like that. So exactly disease, because they don't go to many of them. Of course, those who are settled in the urban cities, they go to the institutional this thing, but there they go to the quacks and other thing. That's why it's not recognized.
Can I respond to that? Sir, actually, sorry.
Yes.
So actually, tribal disease, the pattern, there is no systematic study. Malaria, largely, you find the malaria is largely tribal, right? Sickle cell anemia, other types of diseases have some coming from some product study. But now, recently, ICMR is doing a basically profile of the tribal in Odisha. ICMR is doing. And after 1 year, you can have, it is a very good approach. Comprehensive study they are doing, profiling of the tribal disease pattern they are doing. So that should be the first in India, which will look into the basically give a clear-cut idea of the tribal disease pattern. But otherwise, tribal disease pattern don't have specific representative studies which will tell you the what type of disease tribal study. But very specific located type of diseases. Malaria was prevalent largely. Common project which is now implemented. The government of Odisha takes a lot of pride for that, and that is political.
I shouldn't say that, but then Sir said that sir agreed also malaria. We also know malaria, but believe me, sir, I also don't know whether. Suppose I have a fever, I also don't make it out whether I am suffering from malaria or not. We say it's malaria, but I also don't know. But then there are Nana Muniko Nana Mata. That's actually fine.
Sir, with your permission, just to add to it,
Yeah.
private TV focusing because of
But,
Honorable President.
sir, could you please be louder?
Private TV, particularly of the intervention of Honorable President Madam, she is from Odisha. Private TV and priority, we are working on that.
Mhm.
So some kind of figures. We have done some few studies on private.
Yes, yes.
We have published a
It
paper.
will be really good for us
Give
actually.
it to you.
Yes.
Sir. Not disease burden, but access to healthcare institutions.
It will be really good actually help. So if you look at the fertility rate, as I said, actually it's a little higher for the tribes than then this childbearing also the interval of their birth is little more for the tribes than the others. Then the mortality, nutritional status, and anemia among the children of tribes we have taken and compared it with the total figure. So the tribal kids are more anemic. As I said, the disease is largely related to the nutrition. Of course, the environmental diseases because the settlement is in such a place that they get these mosquitoes and other things. So then with respect to the institutional deliveries and others, if you look at, that's also the case. It's comparatively less to the others. Most of them are anemic, in fact, related to the then actually it's we try to understand the structure of the Adivasi economy. And in fact, I visited, of course, sir was suggesting somebody, I think Tara, sir was suggesting, it's bit, actually we visited, I visited, discussed with some time, what is their major source, major source of livelihood. It's agriculture, animal husbandry, forest products, non-farm and laborers. Actually, off late, actually, laborers, but otherwise they're not, honestly speaking, if you ask a typical tribe, go and they're not interested to be a laborer, actually. They respect their independency and independent opinion and work independently. They value it more. That's why laborers probably post. So otherwise, agriculture, animal husbandry, forestry, and this is the work actually they are involved in. Then what are the bottlenecks actually I have observed? Actually, it's from the literature, also with my group discussion with some of the tribes. Poor productive assets actually, because see their land holding, if you look at, of course, Amrandu Bhai was there, he had worked extensively on Poduchasa, that shifting cultivations, but then the land holding pattern is that water retention is very difficult actually in those parts, and no getting into cultivation or in agriculture which is water intensive crop is really difficult for them. So the productivity is very less, and diversification of livelihood is very rare, whether they either depend on forest producers or agriculture or some brick workers or other thing. Other thing which you have identified is the governance, because they don't understand actually what is the program available for them. They don't understand. Of course, the movie had shown, but in reality also, if you see, they don't understand. When I asked, actually, when I discussed, are you from government offices? Is it somehow related to some benefit or something like that? They don't understand that they need to wake up fast and work for themselves before somebody, help them to, bring them out of this trap. Then the skill and knowledge is not befitting the requirement of the modern days. It says somebody migrates from the rural area or from his mountain or forest to the urban area in search of a better livelihood. Here he will be engaged in what you call workers in the construction company or something like that. It doesn't give him the amount of amount of income that is required for somebody to have a decent standard of living. That's what actually the things which you have identified. Of course, conclusion are also very, it's, you may say, subjective, because education, I said, one of our student had worked on this psychology student had worked on the efficiency of education, and what her finding was, of course, it's a generic finding, but she had done it for Alchiki script. If a student does studies or education is provided to a student in his or her mother tongue, the efficacy of that education is better. But unfortunately, most of the tribal, probably Alchiki is the only script here we have for the tribes, for the Santals. But there we have Hos and others, for Kodas and others for whom there is no script. So it's better actually if you can find some algorithm of some actually foundation from Karnataka is working to develop some script for these people. But then actually, if you can give them education in their own languages, then probably that will be of more effective. And communications, of course, I was saying, both physical as well as internet, virtual communication is required. Because many of the places are said because of the communication gap. Of course, with due respect, sir, I also at times feel that probably in the record they have that in the hospital we have these instruments. Those instruments might not be there. If there is communication and there is governance to check actually whether those instruments and everything is are available for the tribes to be utilized, and they know its importance, probably that will be of great help to our these people. Then diversification of livelihood is something. Of course, these are things people may say that it's new wine in old, but what you're saying, diversification will be a hedge against uncertainty of income. That's, and eco tourism and that's a new, of course, tomorrow we have a talk on that. Ecotourism can also help them to earn certain income, and as I said, area and tribe specific. You cannot have a single no programs at or provision at the Delhi or Bhubaneswar, and you can say that a tribe living in Paloda will be benefiting from that. That's definitely not possible. And marketing facility for the produce. And this is one other thing actually, which I think Sir will be in a better position to say which I observe. Offering drink, the house-made drink, we call it mohua in my place, and handia other things actually locally made. Taking it and offering it to the guest is a custom in many of the tribes. But unfortunately, what I have seen, the institutional as well as non-institutional player, even the police and other thing, they harass them. Narco team also harass them, even if they have used it for their self-consumption. The irony is, we award a person who sells the highest wine or highest liquor in this country, but harass a tribe who lives in the remote village who has prepared this alcohol for his or her self-consumption. So we need to find out a mechanism for an win-win situation for them as well as for the government. But there could be some spoiled brats to spoil the entire thing, but then we should have some governance mechanism to have a win-win situation for them as well as for the government. So for which actually we require a proactive governance. Institutions at the lowest level like panchayat and other institutions have a lot of or great role to play if actually our intention of bringing them out of this trap is genuine. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
What about the impact of this relocation in the name of development?
Yes.
Are you trying to check how this relocation is having its impact on the?
We are referring to displacement.
Displacement. See, here we haven't done that one because the title is like their status and the path to progress. But what, from my experience or some literature which I've done, it's the relocation. See, it's very tricky, and one way we require definitely progress and development so that we can generate revenue and subsidize the people those who require. But then this relocation has affected them emotionally also, because they are very closely associated with their nature. So if you relocate them from one place to another place, they are emotionally affected. Of course, we give them some economic packages and other things, but as Nehru has earlier said, that we should have specific, tribe specific and location specific strategy for them. If you relocate some, I'll give another example. In my place, some 5 kilometers away from my place, when Rengari project was done, some 180 families were relocated. They're all tribes. Next to my village, they're relocated. And neither the mainland people, these people are accepting them as them in the community, nor do they think that they are part of this community. That's emotional thing is important. If,
Sir, emotional well-being is one
Oh,
part, but economic well-being, because you are talking of livelihood
Like,
and
yes.
diversification of livelihood. The tribes who have been relocated, they have been dependent on forest and
Yeah.
forest products for age
Yeah.
days. How this kind of displacement is affecting the livelihood?
As I
We can
said,
also examine that.
yes. As I said, actually, we haven't done it here, but then this when they relocate, they give them some compensation, compensation, but then no, so that
That is not sufficient
that,
enough.
not only sufficient. That compensation gets adjusted in 1 year, within 1 year, because they spend it in that Gonzalode or something. That's clear.
I'm sorry to like interrupt for a while. You don't mind.
So,
Yes,
so, sir,
getting to her point.
Hmm.
I mean, this is, I don't know where we came from, this Gonja Ladi and all this thing. I was very carefully listening to you because I myself happen to be a driver. And that is what it is. So the important thing is that, concern is well taken, but most of the things I found, whatever you said, is historically misplaced and, misinformed. First thing is that, see, the very term Banavasi, Janajati, these are all RSS images, okay, to utilize the history of. We should very carefully, because we are academic, we should not be using that, or even if it is in surface, point one. Point two is that we any idea of tribal development, because I'm a person,
area, tribal development.
Adivasi development. I had gone through the all Constituent Assembly debate. Okay, I'm on when I take a lot of interest in politics and all these things. Actually, idea was never been, so to say, mainstreaming them, as you said. See, this Alvin concept, the Khakha is written about it. If you look at the literature, there has been a lot of debate on isolationist policy, or there should be no mainstreaming policy. But Constituent Assembly had taken a note. No, we cannot isolate them. Either we are going to mainstream them. It is their choice. Rather, we should give them provision, constitutional provision, and they called it integration, without hampering that, so to say, culture, economy, and whatever legacy they have had. Okay, so that is very important. So integration was the point. And the point that you talked about is, mainstreaming, how to mainstream them. Actually, if you look at the aspiration of tribals, they never had any issue about livelihood. They were happy people.
Yes.
And our narration about this location of the way we locate them is highly problematic. They are well-educated people. I believe that they are more politically aware than any one of us sitting here. They take stand, political stand. They fight against capitalism. They fight against inclusion of Brahminism. Fight against even Christianity, because they have understanding about what they are. So only having literacy and policy is not like an indicator to assess that who is literate or who is not literate, and who is educated and who is not actually. So to understand the development paradigm. So it is very important and tricky whenever we are using. And I also found that when you say that I don't have this when this Fernandez is one of the most revered person in Adivasi.
Most
Revered person. He's very highly acclaimed for one thing. He had a commitment. Okay? And he's the only person who could tell the world that what was the cost of development that people like Nehru and all that and this is. Okay, Nehru was given credit for one good thing because he was also thought of scheduled areas. Despite all its criticism and this temple of this thing, sacrificing blood. Actually that happened. We have also articulated that when we are saying development at whose cost? Who are going to be victims of that? And the word relocation is not relocation; this is disposition.
Yes.
You are not relocating them. Okay, it's not like I have taken a house in Manchester. I will relocate myself to some other area. You are forcefully disposing them with the poor state apparatus. And at that, and people have died. Look at what happened in Kalinga. 13 people died. Look at Asi, 3 people died. And I could name so many people who have died. Protecting their areas. That's what is actually happening in 25 approach. Now, ecotourism, again, conceptualizing travel as a commodity for entertainment is again problematic.
That is not going to help Adivasi anyway. That is again distort their economy, So see, these are like genuine concerns because I work with them very closely. I'm a traveler, blogger, and I basically meet a lot of activists. Now recently, Popular Samantra have were trying to contest the very idea of Odisha country, this investment country, because at what cost? You're not giving them anything, and this R&R policy 2006 is a shitty thing, It does not give them anything. And the claim that we are making, Vanjalodi, this is not that. Their economy is very different. We have to understand it. If you give a poor person even 10 lakhs rupees, she doesn't know what to do with that money because at the outside world, that person is completely alienated. He is not accepted by the families, neighbors. I know the case of displacement where they try to shift to another place out of this displacement, so this is quote unquote. They were they were actually treated as an outsider.
Yes, that's what.
Finally, they have to settle down somewhere else.
No,
So
that's
anyway, my point is this: whenever we are talking about Adivasi issue or any other marginalized community issue, really important to be politically take political stuff. It's really important, and it's also really important to understand who they are, what is their problem, and actually the first-hand information or experience would be the better one. We have all this debate on sociology. So just listing down, what kind of data we have on Adivasi is not enough because we're creating a vision document. This is my personal thing. And we should also try to tell the world that this is what exactly they need. And their aspiration has to be given a mention. Because in fact, development has created a lot of help for Adivasi. It has created so much of benefits for the so to say urban pockets. And in Odisha, whatever development is taking place, it is at the cost of blood of actually Adivasi. And this is a strong statement I made.
Okay,
Yes, sir, yes,
so
sir.
just
One-
actually, it's in a way he has helped me in explaining probably your thing.
So, I mean,
It's not actually probably I didn't get the right word to explain. He said the correct thing because see, they are emotionally attached to a particular place. You would simply it's not relocating as you said. They will just.
What I meant to be by
Hmm.
relocation is like when we're compulsorily displacing them,
Mhm.
giving a simple compensation in the name of
And who decides
compensation package.
Yeah.
What about its impact on their economic livelihood? Are they happy? Like what you said, are they happy? And that's the question.
See, it's-
Secondly, is an ecotourism model. Actually, it's not. This is only an eyewash.
Hmm.
In fact, in semi-pal tigerism, if you see the tribals, what is the kind of inclusive development of the spreads? They are only involved as petty workers in restaurants. They are cleaning the utensils.
In Kashipur,
But the
same thing happened.
empowerment, what about the empowerment? Economic empowerment is not happening. Only eye-washing in the word of eco. When we are using environment, green tourism, ecotourism, and the tribals, they are not actually empowered neither economically, nor socially, nor culturally. The culture, they have a very high
Right.
culture, but that's also we are not showcasing to the tourists what kind of cultural advantage they have. And third, sir, about that wine, what you call this Desi India. Now, recently I had traveled to Kur. All over the places they have handmade wine shops, which are being authorized by the government of Karnataka. So we can also think like.
See,
why
I
they are
think,
suffering.
I think, madam, this is what I proposed. That's what I said. No, we can see they are being harassed by our system, institutional system, for something which they have been doing it actually for several years. I have seen them actually being they being arrested by the police.
There's a word harass. We can use the word. We can use another word.
Anyway,
And sir, actually, we don't use also PBTs.
Hmm?
I mean, these are some like this is deliberation. This is very friendly talk.
Hmm.
We avoid using these PBTs as well.
But
because
government
they have
uses PBTG, no?
PBTG or PBTG
Government
categories.
uses it, but government has a problem. Government is not of sacrosanct, right? They can
Okay,
use
just-
whatever they want.
Like what would be the alternative?
So-
It could be anything else.
so,
They are not
yes, yes.
either-
Madam,
they
second,
are
one
disadvantaged, they have to protect.
One second.
No, PBTG they don't contest.
One second.
PBTG, who
Sir.
contests PBTG?
We contest. I contest personally.
No, you
They are not-
contest, but
I'm an Adivasi, I contest.
but Kandhaj do not contest. They have their Kandhaj Development Authority.
I don't know what is happening to them. So that is their business.
No. We'll have to look at the intellectual discourse. Like
This is intellectual discourse.
what
See,
I think
who
is-
contest what depends on where one is located.
What I think is that
I should not be telling all these things had I not been trained somewhere else.
I think
I would have accepted the narration.
I think I agree with both of them.
Uh.
I think IIT has taken a stand on that. When we do the research on terrorism,
Yes.
don't be ideological, judgmental, descriptive to them. So we listen to them. We have done some rapid ethnographic studies. So
Yes.
we listen to them. And based on that, because we believe in that, people might be illiterate, but they are not stupid. They take rational decisions based on the context, based on the situation. And I think we need to add, because you may not get very quantitative data for this chapter.
Yes.
Of course, you will have a liberty because you are author, but we will be there as a critical review to provide on that. Some of the terms, government may be using that terms, but academically we have to challenge those terms with some logic, with some data, and there are many qualitative studies done on this one. There are some misleading studies also. We go to this, it doesn't go to them at all. Sarit has seen the Puri road just 1 week back. They destroyed the whole land, the so-called visitors, and it doesn't go to the villages. I have met the villages. The whatever economy comes to them, it doesn't go to them, and whatever the negative externalities are, they have to suffer from that. So we have to be very careful while writing this chapter on tribal. That's good.
On PPTs, I think probably I can also comment a little bit. Recently, I was attending workshop in Utkal University. They have a center on this inclusion. Some center is there. Inclusion Excellence Center. So there, I was asking like, how do they identify some community as the PPTs?
It is like tiger counting. Their number is
So in fact, that conceptualization is really problematic. In that, we had a lot of discussion on that actually. So those conceptualization was done probably before independence. That is why probably why Pankaj is raising this concern. And that was done by
See,
so probably we can think.
no, these are no, that's okay. You don't have to answer this. They are raising some.
No, it's not an answer actually. It's a,
Actually, these are concerns.
I will tell you.
Because this has to be incorporated.
Some of the social reformers in Maharashtra even challenged Mahatma Gandhi calling the Dalit people Harijan.
Yeah.
Calling them Harijan is not
That has been
solving the
revised.
problem.
Absolutely.
It is-
See,
With time, everything changes. So.
see. I mean, if,
You have not had any study in the developmental funds, special funds, like your Adivasi development. Sub-plan.
Sir, actually,
That is
also
study on
important
that,
point.
but the impact of that money and how much of money was diverted from that source.
The source is, you can go to CUI, they have lots of stakeholders.
Sir, sir, I have like 3-4. These are like things which I said because out of my concern, but how to like improve this paper? See, SCP and TSP. Basically, TSP, Tribal Sub-Plan, is one of the biggest fleet. If you look at a lot of money being siphoned off, diverted for different causes, even all these hockey management things are happening from that account. So that is why government never tries to give a data. RTI data was denied. Okay, and that is one thing is happening. What is happening to mineral fund, district mineral fund, DMF? OB जितने भी management reach out of DMF, but in Koraput area there is no hospital. People die out of stupid diseases. This is reality, sir. Undivided Koraput. Look at what is happening in northern Odisha or Kemujar and all these things. No critical healthcare is available there. Okay? Only showbiz. I mean, during the COVID.
But in Koraput there is a medical college.
Oh, medical college.
no, sir. Actually, what he says is correct. Medical courage. It's as I said.
My students died. 2 students died because of simple jaundice. That could have been curated.
The
That is the
doctor
case. So DMF fund का पैसा कहाँ जा रहा है? What is it going?
And DMF fund,
There is no school over there.
Spent in that district.
Only districts.
It cannot be used there.
Yeah, it cannot be used elsewhere, but the money COVID finance, ठीक है, you do it, it's fine. But what about creating critical healthcare there? Critical education system there? They are not doing it. Okay, they are like giving all the students to KISS, Kalinga Institute, and Kalinga Institute is nicely creating a kind of a warrior who defend this development idea. It's a very critical thing, sociological thing. I mean, it's beyond economics. So we have to look at through this gauge. It is very important.
Medical college is not going to solve the tribal health problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The primary healthcare that should emerge within the tribal. That should emerge within them. Then only you cannot push the primary healthcare. on them. It should
Yes.
emerge from within them.
yes, Professor.
Just, I agree with all the points raised by Pankaj, but one just the question of disposition has to be a part of it. We might be talking about disposition in other chapters in other countries, but if we are having a specific chapter on
Tribal, it has to be there.
it has to be there because it is the key concern around.
In fact, for Odisha, this chapter will be so important.
Yeah, it's very and also,
True.
also,
I
chapter,
can-
and also there is I mean, not very good data, but enough number of field survey based data studies which are available, which can be utilized to argue all these points and back all these points.
But let me summarize. Now, auditing, even if you have done a data stock taking, that is not going to be the mainstay of this chapter. You can do auditing of the literature on issues of disposition and development, and that is quite a bit of literature. That is enough. I mean, to borrow on them and create a discourse here in this paper. But I was also thinking analytically, it is not about, everybody says this much percentage of tribal are in Odisha, this happens and all that. I have done, I mean, because of my experience, few students at least who worked with me on tribal issues. So there are themes like this, whether tribal concentration in a region gives an advantage or not, or gives a disadvantage. I'm not giving the answer to you. I'm not giving that answer to you, but you should write that does it help. Second thing is that we cannot overlook, even if it is, as Pankaj says, that tribal supply and expenditure, for instance, we cannot overlook that data. We have to use that data to say the fallacy, the wrong implications or whatever. We should highlight that saying that this does not hold water when we make an analysis of this. And as he was telling, it is very interesting. Don't try to say mainstreaming or anything like that. There is no need of highlighting the mainstreaming aspect. In fact, in any social category, I mean, I've been reading data every day, so I know convergence has become a rule now. I mean, everything converges. You take social group, you take income class, everything is converging. So there is no point in highlighting this category convergence. Yeah. There is no need. And literally, you should be saying that actually how much of things which I say in an equity perspective, how much of focus is lost. I mean, basically, by focus, I mean that there is a particular group which should gain better than what is happening because they had been oppressed, they had been at a disadvantage. Has there been a focus? And this terminology I'm sharing with this crowd because it's important. It is not about convergence, it is not about that, it's about focus. And if we can parameterize something to say there is or there is not focus, perhaps this will do justice to this chapter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir. ମୋ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ ରହିକିରି ଆମେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟିଏ ଷ୍ଟଡି କରୁଛୁ ଆପଣ ଯେତେ ସେଠିକି ପଠେଇଛନ୍ତି କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମ ଇନକ୍ଲୁଡିଂ ଫୁଡ୍ ସିକ୍ୟୁରିଟି ଆକ୍ଟ ଅନ୍ତର୍ଗତ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ତାର କେମିତି ବିଶୁଦ୍ଧ ପ୍ରେସ୍ ନେଇଛି ତା ଉପରେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ବଡ଼ ଷ୍ଟଡି କରୁଛୁ ଆମେ ସେଥିରେ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ସାହାଯ୍ୟ କରିପାରିବୁ.
Thank you. That's good.
And I thank everybody for the constructive suggestions. Thank you.
Somebody online? Deepak.
Yeah, you can share your PPT.
Yes, money आपन भुवनेश्वर जेल के लिए और your information. Yeah, I know.
Thank you, sir. Deepak, just wait.
On screen sharing. Is that?
Please speak something, Deepak. Let me see whether it is audible or not.
Yes, sir, it is very clear to me.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Deepak, go ahead. Yes.
Is my slide is visible to you all?
Yeah, it's visible.
Thank you.
Make it full screen. Make it full screen.
Good evening to all.
Deepak, can you make it full screen?
Yes, I did it, sir.
Full on. No, you're not done.
No, I think then there is some issue. I think okay, go ahead. No problem.
Now is it full screen? Is or is
No, to us it is not showing full screen.
okay.
So
1 second.
sometimes it creates problem in the browser. So
Should
now,
I start? Uh,
yeah, okay, you carry on. Yes.
yeah. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. This is I'm presenting on behalf of Professor Das. Our topic is food security and nutrition Odisha for achieving SDG goal 2, and this area is new both of us. Although I did my master's as MPhil from agriculture economics, but I shift my area in health. Still, I explore these areas, new areas as part of Odisha Economic Associations. The content of the presentations, introductions, past literature, review of food and nutrition security in Odisha based on SDG Goal 2 targets, indicators proposed by United Nations National Indicator Framework, Odisha State Indicator Framework. Current status of food and nutrition security, major schemes for achieving FNS in Odisha, vision for food nutrition security in Odisha, and key policy areas for achieving.
Deepak,
Yes, sir.
screen is not moving. So what you do is you don't put it in full screen. Without full screen, you just yeah. So now you operate. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Huh.
Thank you. So you know all that is SDG goal 2 is related to end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture by 2030. The aim of almost all developing countries. So before started this topic, when I was started writing this chapter, thinking in which framework we have to apply, or when you can add all indicators. So we have identified there is one indicator framework called United Nations. Then Government of India also providing national indicator framework, and Odisha government also recently given a framework for SDGs, and SDG goal 2 is called OSF, Odisha State Indicator Framework. So what we have done this study, we have combined the three, and we have to identify what are the loopholes and what are the new additions of both Odisha State Indicator Framework and National Indicator Framework added as compared to United Nations. Even in some cases, Odisha State Indicator Framework have added more indicators as per their geographical features of the state as compared to National Indicator Framework. In this study, we have not done why it is happening, only we have shown what is the status of food security and nutrition Odisha, and based on these indicators and proposed policies for the future 2036, you can say. The study has used secondary data to review the SDG Goal 2 indicators, which includes economic survey of Odisha, annual budget documents, annual activity report, evaluation report of certain programs, and existing journal literature. Here also we have not done any discourse analysis type of thing. That is different, will be different research. Here we want to show what is the current status, what are the current measures government of Odisha taken, how we can go forward. These are the past literature based on food security in Odisha. You see Panda 2016, they emphasize that stabilizing food grain productions and production of high value commodities are essential to achieve sustainable and long-term food availability in the state. And Jenna 2016, importance should be given on small millets productions and consumptions. Although few policy schemes are available for millets, but they are find there is a regional variations still exist in terms of utilizations and implementation problem at the district level. Again, Panda 2016, that average calorie intake is higher than the national average, but there is a two-part protein and fat intake is much lower. That we should emphasize on this protein and fat. And Sarkar is a latest study. They argue that availability of food grains is not an issue in southern districts. Rather, they have analyzed 30 districts, analyzed what is the features, and they found that particularly southern districts, The district's name is there in full document. Nabarangpur, Koraput, these are the districts. But the major issue is that accessibility and utilizers, which is major barriers. Further, few districts face a double burden of malnutrition. You can find some people have undernourished as well as some certain proportion of people are obese. So these type of double burden of malnutrition also exist in context of districts. And Jenna and Misra also found that millet can be played a vital role in address malnutrition in Odisha through Odisha millet missions. They have also addressed that PDS system. If you add, like you are adding rice and wheat as a PDS, also you add millet, that could be a solution for reduced malnutrition. So what we have done, we have reviewed the tabular form I have not presented. There is a use table where we can compare three frameworks. First, 5 targets, 2.1 to 2.5 related to food security and agricultural sustainability. Last 3, 2A to C targets are related to increasing investment in agriculture and reducing market restrictions and other volatility, price volatility. And we have found NIF and Odisha State Indicator Framework have revised origin indicators of United Nations and prepared their own indicator based on the requirement. There is some difference. We have found that Odisha indicator, they have segregated the indicators on outcome, output and process indicator, which is missing in both the National Indicator Framework as well as few gaps. Also, we have identified 3 SDG framework that we will discuss whenever we discuss that other status. Current status of food and nutritional security based on SDG goal. The target 2.1 is universal access to safe and nutritious food. OSF, Odisha State Nutrition Framework and National Indicator Framework, they have taken 2.1.1 is prevalence of underweight. But this indicator is not available in actual original indicator of UN. It was there prevalence of undernourishment. So this indicator is missing in both the framework. And prevalence underweight is the indicator is listed in target 2.2, which is reduce all form of malnutrition. So this data we have just collected from report from NFHS, which is available. You can get easily downloadable from IAPS website. And here you see that performance is better as compared to India, but there is a rural urban differences you can find on achieving underweight. And prevalence of food insecurity, average 94.98 beneficiaries are covered under NFS Act 2020 in Odisha, which is slightly lower than the coverage target. Children cover, these are the second, see, children cover under midday meal scheme and access cooked food for urban poor Ahar. These are the 2 new additions Odisha government in Odisha State Indicator Framework they have added, which is not available in other frameworks. Around 97% of children consumed MDM per month in Odisha in 2021, and it was around 85% in 1920. So slight increase, but here I am telling you during COVID time, they are supplying food in that means packaged food in the respective household. That it is mentioned in the report. As per the annual report, Odisha State Food Commission, 87% of children linked with Aadhaar as the latest year 2021 in order to transfer food security allowance. These are the major that means initiatives, midday meal scheme, then access to cooked food for urban poor. As per the latest economic survey 2021 Odisha, nearly 1 lakh hot cooked meals are served 158 Aadhaar Kendras in 114 urban local bodies, and meal service extended at night in 51 Aadhaar Kendras. These are the current status of 3 indicators. Actually, first 2 indicators available in original UN indicator, the last 2 added in Odisha context. Second one is target 2.2 end all forms of malnutrition. Here actually 3 indicators there are original, one stunting, wasting and underweight. Underweight is there, but overweight indicator is not available. It is available in original indicator, but not available in NIF as well as Odisha State Indicator. So this figure you see, overweight figure is not available in previous NFHR round. So sorry, I have not written here. Table is there. As compared to India, Odisha performs better in malnutrition indicator. The indicators of prevalence of overweight not mentioned in both NIF as it was available original. So in overweight indicator now is a overweight is also a problem, maybe a problem in let's say 10-15 years. So that also you can be add in to make a policy related like other indicators. And then other anemia among mothers and children, this performance is very not very important one, and this situation is not good in comparison to it is increasing in 62.2%. Women age 15 to pregnant women have anemia, and you see rural areas it is increased from 47% is 2015-16, and percent children in also anemia. So these two on malnutrition anyway we are performing better as compared to India in some few states, but anemia figure we have to take a concerns regarding mother and children. That things. This is the target as we are literature review says agriculture productivity to agri production is important for food security as well as nutrition. So that's why I've added those indicators also. Double the productivity of income small scale food producers. Exact those indicators is not available, but as per the Odisha state indicator we have added those indicators. Agriculture productivity of wheat and rice. You see the productivity of the blue figure is India, the brown color is Odisha, and it is below the national average, but it is increasing trend, or there is some volatilities there, fluctuations per hectare. Then wheat also, you see the data from 2004 wheat, and that is 1962. The data source you can collect from State Finance Budget Report or database in Indian economy of Indian states. Then agriculture value added per worker, it shows that agriculture value added per worker Odisha is 0.04, which is very much less than target level 1.22. As compared to other states, Odisha agriculture output per worker is less, except few states, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh. Then another indicator is institutional credit to agriculture. And you see the agriculture ratio of institutional credit to agriculture output that I have calculated. The original data is available in paper that report. You see that institutional credit also with respect to total gross value added of agriculture is increasing. That is also a good sign, but whether you are covering small marginal farmer, that is a issue. Crop insurance, as per latest economic survey, it is reported that state is implementing PM Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana as flagship crop insurance program. As per the latest informations, overall increment increased from 17.63 lakhs to 20.0 lakhs in 3 years, and area crop increased from 12.5 lakhs hectares. So due to adoption of this type of insurance mechanism, which is one type of mechanism to mitigate the disaster related incidents in crops or agriculture productivity, because Odisha is always prone to different types of drought, flood and cyclones. That's why this insurance is a good mechanism to overcome the situations. Then household access to PDS, safe drinking water, sanitation, full immunizations. And Odisha government has started state food security missions in October, having a provision of 20 lakh persons in TPDS and under the Anna Yojana scheme. As per 2021, this much 3,66,353 families are covered under state food security missions. And also drinking from tap missions or pipe water facilities also is as compared to it is improving in the last year. So productivity of pulses, these are the all new indicators. So we have to also in context of like state Odisha, those indicators. Odisha is not a huge production for pulses. So these are the crops which high value crops or is very you can storable. That production also important should grow. So pulses per yield also you see is also increasing trend from since 2000. You see, as compared to India, also the blue figure is Odisha. Since 2000 is increasing trend. So over the period, you will see the productivity or so area production of rice will come down, or high value product, or those that might the farmers will interest and they will do. Diversification of crops, that is important. Diversification from paddy to other high value crops, cotton, pulses, oil seeds, spice, fruits, vegetables, millet, which is not listed in both indicators. We have added diversification of crops, the new indicators. The 5T technology, 5T technology framework, Department of Agriculture and Farmers Empowerment, that is special focus on crop diversification and targeting rice and fallow areas. These graphs I have done through using the data. You see, this is a figure, little, this is a huge figure. So you see, rice production is come down. Sorry, rice trend area of croppings, rice come down, but other crops, you see, let's see, cotton is increasing. Oil seeds come down, you should increase oil seeds. Pulses having the not a regular linear trend, but and then so these are the figures actually. Fruits, cotton, vegetables also increasing, pulses. So if you want to diversify the crops, you have to increase, diversify some of the areas to other productions. These are the latest figure to 2020. Agriculture marketing infrastructure. Government of Odisha, State of Odisha, around 695 infrastructure project of beneficiary assisted. As for 2021 infrastructure related, government also implementing agriculture marketing infrastructure, that a sub-scheme of integrated schemes for agriculture marketing, under which assistance provided for constructions, renovations of godowns, warehouse in the rural areas in the states to enhance the storage capacity agriculture produce. Then fisheries productions, this is fish production, lakh tons. This is also new indicators. It is not particularly in context of Odisha. Fish production also increasing trend. That also good sign. See, we are also started not so much dependent in other states, and also in moving forward to produce own fisheries productions. Increasing cropping intensity, that also cropping intensity, you see, 2004 2020 cropping intensity is below than national average, but we should increase cropping intensity. That is the one objective, to raise farmers income or double the farmers income. The things. Then sustainable food productions, resilient agriculture practices. You see, first indicator is degraded land. It is observed that 34% of the total geographic area under dissatisfaction and land degradations for the period 2011-13. That was the latest data available, and the land degradation has decreased from 0.12% since 2003 and 5. The most significant process of land degradation is water erosions, which is around 28%, followed by vegetations degradation, which is 4 these things. That also we need to check. Land should not be degraded, otherwise the productivity or crop fertility will come down. Soil health card, both percentage of farmers issued soil health card, which is not listed in United Nations indicator because it is state specific. Soil health card scheme has been implemented in 32 states, union territories. As the data is not available, but ranking of the states as there as percentage of farmers covered, it shows that Odisha rank is 7 to implement or to sanction the soil health card. 40 to 50% of the farmers have enrolled in these schemes. Organic farming, and Odisha Organic Farming Policy 2018 has been launched to promote organic farming in the state. It has been programmed for cover 2 lakh hectares in 5 years. So this is the latest figures in 2021. You see, cultivated organic area this much, organic farm production million ton. So organic export Odisha also started already started the organic farming, organic culture among the farmers. Then next target 2.5 I have not added. This is a genetically crops, those things. That is few data is available. That have not, but again come to the investment in agriculture nutrition. You see nutritional expenditure as percentage of total revenue expenditure. You see from 90s to 2021 there is revenue expenditure. It is called prioritizations. If you ratio as percentage of expenditure, the prioritizations, you see the expenditure is not that much linear, it's a volatile, fluctuation is there. And agriculture allied activities as percentage of total revenue expenditure. Nutrition not part of this. It is also increasing. Somewhere in 2005 is come down and again increasing. So 2021 the agriculture expenditure is come down. The latest maybe 2021 it will be revised estimate or budget estimate. These are the types of expenditure on total agriculture allied expenditure in Odisha. These are the crop husbandry, because last we discussed we should increase high value production. So that much fiscal source of fiscal space should be there. So crop husbandry expenditure 56% of total agriculture expenditure we spend on crop husbandry. Soil water conservation is 2. Animal husbandry 7. Agriculture research and education is 3%. Irrigation 22%. Major amount of expenditure out of total agriculture spent on crop as well as irrigation. So we should more focus on dairy development, animal husbandry, fisheries, research and development. These are the areas government should spend or prioritize spending. These are the major schemes. I have now only added 2 target schemes: central fund, centrally sponsored scheme, state sector schemes. You see supplementary nutrition program. The bracket is parenthesis is the department which is handling, or you can get the data from particular department. The Annapurna scheme, midday meal scheme. This is state sector schemes, state food security schemes, and AHAR. And yet all forms of malnutrition, supplemental nutrition program, national health missions, which is part of SDG goal 3, then reproductive maternal health, then here other schemes, state sector scheme, Mamata, Sampurna, already Sarisa also presented. These are the schemes. So this is if you want to make a policy, you have to collaborate with other schemes. Goal number 1 or health related goals. Then only the policy comprehensive can be done. These are the vision for safe nutrient. These are the things I've derived. What are my analysis? Transparency in distribution of food, quality of food, and timely deliverables of food under state food security system to eligible beneficiaries required. Ahar facilities should be continued in urban areas. Location of Ahar Kendra should be displayed in openly to get awareness, because I also know we usually not identify if somebody is coming from stranger by. So they should know where it is. So it should be displayed properly. The corner of any city. Prevalence of undernourishment. This indicator is missing. They should incorporate those indicators. As per the NSSO latest round, prevalence of undernourishment should reduce, which is around 40% now, which is higher as compared to other states: Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Haryana, Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra. So these indicators should be added, and this indicator is very vital. And then what are the vision for malnutrition? There is a huge gap between rural urban performance in terms of malnutrition, underweight, stunting, wasting. Especially wasting nowadays, and that overweight is a major problem in urban city. And anemia among mother children needs an urgent attention in Odisha, both rural urban, because around 62% pregnant women and 64% children's anemia, creating awareness by door-to-door campaign and universal distribution of medicine at the village post office should be initiated. There is need for proper coordination between Department of Health, Family Welfare, Women Child Development, Mission Shakti to better implement the schemes such as Mamata, Sampurna, ICDS and Biju Shishu Suraksha Yojana. And vision for double the income and productivity of farmers by 2036. Productivity of crops, rice should be increased above the national average. Currently, the productivity or rice yield is per kg per hectare is 2182 in 2020, whereas national average is 2722. Focus should be proper implementation of state food security mission and benefits of schemes should be reached to all small and marginal farmers. Balaram schemes should be reached in all small marginal farmers and banking facilities should smooth for access to credit. Awareness about the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana and coverage should be increased. Continuous focus on crop diversifications towards high value agriculture and allied activity to ensure farmers' income and food sufficiency. Vision for sustainable food productions, control land degradation, especially water erosion, vegetation degradations in Odisha to use natural resources properly. And this data already I explained. Sewage facility should be done in all agricultural land areas. Coverage of soil health card distribution, awareness among the farmers should be improved. Importance should be given to organic farming. Special training should be given youth to start their entrepreneurs regarding organic farming. Vision for agriculture nutrition investment, that budget allocation for agriculture research and development, dairy development, animal husbandry, fisheries should be increased because those sectors could provide a sustainable source of gross value added to agriculture. Nutrition expenditure share of revenue is very less. It should be prioritized. Although Odisha government having the special nutritional budget is there, it should be continued. Overall, hopefully, this will be a good idea, a good path to make a nutritionally sound better than other states. Vision for digitalization agriculture, expansion of e-market for agriculture products, marking, and as well as purchasing of inputs should be enhanced. Thereby, supply chain difficulties to deliver the production should be faster. And overall, the key policy areas: leadership, governance, coordination. This includes the improving, strengthening the integration of food security, nutrition effort across ministries such as agriculture, health, women, child development, education, other sectors. That means what I'm saying, you should think as a system lens or it needs a system approach, how to integrate the context, content and policy with the consultation of stakeholders. Increasing the sustainable productions practices of agriculture allied sectors such as fisheries, foods, vegetables, livestock sector by incorporating climate change adoption, disaster risk reduction policies. Adopt, enforce, monitor food standard nutrition intake of children under midday meal schemes as well as other nutrition programs. Strengthening social marketing, consumer awareness on safe and healthy food that would promote household behavior towards consumption of safe, nutritious food of both mother and child. Recently, we have come up with one project that they implemented one scheme where they will sensitize to the mother with a 9-month period, whether this scheme, how their feeding practices, other things increase. So these type of initiatives should increase. Mother is the main agent, means main persons or main door where the children can get better feeding practices. Effective monitoring and evaluation of the policy and implementation of plan. Therefore, special funding should be given to for research and development. Thank you. I look forward to your feedback.
Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So, anybody to react on this or something?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes, you can say it. This is no problem. It will take
Eight program.
We are recording this. Yeah.
Namaskar. So actually, let me be very honest with you. One is like, I think the presentation itself was not very clear. Maybe because of this very small fonts or whatever. I mean, that is just a small issue that I'm raising. But I think in general, what we are thinking is like your study on nutrition. I think it has a kind of an overemphasis on agriculture. And the point is, there are three things. One is that suppose even if the production of certain crops, including let's say pulses, for instance, so even if the production increases, that doesn't ensure consumption. So if you are, and one small thing what you could have done, particularly in the context of Odisha, instead of making a comparison between Odisha and India, so it would have been because you are dealing with such a sensitive theme as malnutrition. And within Odisha, at least a district level analysis would have given us a much sharper picture as to which are the regions. I mean, apart from the rural-urban divide, even which are the broad districts in which malnutrition still persists, and whether these are sort of same districts, maybe 20 years back, 30 years back, the same districts which suffered from this are there continuing. And second thing is what kind of, even if you're talking about agriculture, so what kind of crops that you are actually suggesting? I mean, it is not very useful. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm sort of being honest with you. I think what you should also, there is no point giving a kind of a state level agricultural production figures, like in one particular sort of slide you showed some 5-6 different crops, and you were saying cotton is growing, the paddy is coming down. So I think unless we get a sense as to in which way the particular crops are linked to sort of better nutrition. So what happens, like suppose the cotton is growing or coming down, so how does it relate to malnutrition? So that, like, you have done a lot of work, but then we are not able to relate. The last small point is regarding a variety of like suggestions that you made at the end, and which are relating to different kinds of schemes. Bolaram scheme should be there. Government should be careful in this. So we must also take into account even within the agricultural studies, like those who are sort of studying different agricultural schemes in India. There have been a lot of diverse sort of views around that actually. So it is not just enough to say that there should be interdepartmental coordination. So if that is not happening, or there are studies sort of which sort of point out that why certain schemes have succeeded, not succeeded, and also learning from other states if there have been similar initiatives done. So I thought a little more disaggregated level in terms of district studies, and also little bit of critical linkages between, let's say, the whole farm sector and nutrition. And in this whole discussion, what we probably missed out is the whole, like, from the fisheries and its link to nutrition. The whole poultry industry, for instance, it's linked to nutrition. And a little bit about, you did mention about the school, midday school program, but little bit sharper analytical points should have been more helpful. Sorry, I'm extremely sorry if I said little too much than what was expected. Thank you very much.
Should I respond, sir? Should
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. They all are very good suggestions. Actually, we are first frame this one, then we'll go what you suggested, district analysis. District wise, we'll see, and particularly which crop is nutritionally more valuable, like millets. That in depth also we trying to add some parts, or some other states related things also we'll planning to add or make it more attractive or more in depth.
See, Deepak, taking a cue from what Dr. Das just now told, is that you have done a job which is more in a macro. You are using NFHS data.
Yes.
I saw. So I think the proposition made by him about district-wise exposition will not be difficult because you have NFHS 4-5 for a district-wise exposition. And in fact, if you understand food insecurity only from the, this insufficiency or hunger perspective, that is one. But the other one, which is crucial, is basically on balance, because majority of the concern is about balance. And we have also information on dietary balance. Okay. So if you have information on dietary balance, that is whether dietary balance is in keeping with the areas where certain production are happening, their consumption doesn't happen. I mean, you must have read papers where milk gets produced, more people don't take milk there. So obviously that kind of a story we have in our state also. There is places where huge production of certain things, but consumption is absolutely poor. People they still continue to take tamarind and not dal, even if they produce dal. So as he started saying, production and consumption doesn't have a one-to-one linkage. The other aspect which I wanted is that perhaps rather than this macro aggregate figures, if you do a little bit of a household analysis, it is at a household level where consumption happens. So because you are familiar with NSS, so if you do a household level analysis, we can get certain characteristics, because our purpose of this paper is to give an exposition of what is where wrong and where can intervention be made. I mean, primarily. So if that much, if we get, that is enough, we can articulate around it. As a paper, of course, what you have done macro is not an useless thing. It is pretty good. It is pretty comprehensive. But meeting the purpose, you perhaps can look into these things if you can. It's a great
Thank you,
job
sir.
done. Anyway, thank
Sir,
you.
that per capita consumption ability is there, but I deleted it because I use that framework. No, I have calculated per capita availability of all cereals,
Yeah, I know.
and NSSO 68th round.
Right.
But it is there in appendix. I will
Okay.
add some.
Yeah.
But that will be good idea, sir.
Yes.
Consumption data should be there.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we are closing for the day. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
I'll take it question. Any other?
I can କହିଲେ ବି କିଏ ଶୁଣିବ ଅଛି